Ven.Nicholas. I've been teaching in Europe for about 15 years, most recently in England, and I hope to be able to familiarize myself with you and to give you some confidence about your meditation, especially meditation in the Dhammakaya tradition. Hopefully you can hear me. I don't speak very loud. Yeah, we'll get it right eventually. Yes, there are many ways of meditating in the Dhammakaya tradition, and hopefully the little pieces of paper which you filled in, especially the one with this one, if you recognize it, will help to give you some pointers for the way ahead in your meditation that's likely to be the most productive for you. So for those of you who have completed that, I'll try to have that advice back for you by tomorrow morning. Also, I hope the retreat will help you to learn more about yourself, giving you some time for reflection and introspection, and the chance to be part of a community of like-minded meditators, which is always encouraging if you have a daily practice, but you always feel as if you're practicing on your own. Here is the time when you have a sort of shared interest and enthusiasm to inspire you to go further ahead in your practice. We'll talk about aspects of everyday life as well. Some of these will be connected with Buddhist culture of various sorts, simply because Buddhism extends to quite a lot of aspects of life apart from meditation itself on. And we'll have some time to actually look at our meditation and evaluate it as a group, especially tomorrow afternoon. If you can be here for that, we'll have some sharing activities so that we learn to evaluate our own meditation, and also also to perhaps get the interesting experience of hearing some of the other people in the group's meditation and be able to learn from that as well. It's said that it's always a wise person who can learn from their mistakes, but if you can learn from other people's mistakes as well, then that will make you even wiser, I'm sure. And with meditation, that's certainly the case. We can learn more quickly in that way. Being on a meditation retreat is a little bit different from your experience, probably, if you've been along for some of the classes or courses here, simply because you're actually living on site, some of you at least, staying here within the atmosphere of the meditation, at least for 24 hours. If you are a person who meditates at home, then of course you've got your meditation time to focus on your meditation practice, and then you go back to your normal life, which may consist of quite a lot of other things which have very little to do with the meditation. But if you're here on a meditation retreat, there's a chance to actually keep your meditation going between the meditation sessions and to bring meditation out into something more commonly known as mindfulness, where you're actually maintaining the sense of meditation as part of every activity which you do. So being able to keep that going, whether you're participating in activities, exercise, taking meals, conversation with friends, that is a huge opportunity which will allow you to somehow strengthen your meditation in a way that's not normally possible outside of a retreat. So if you do have to go home, then try to take that atmosphere with you as well, even though you're sort of coming and going. Learning as a community is always a good aspect of a retreat. There are some sort of retreats where they lock you away in a little house somewhere and there's a solitary, silent retreat, Okay, that's good in another sense, in that you get to maybe introspect a little bit more, but the way we tend to run things, at least in this tradition, is to make the learning a part of a community experience. So we learn from one another, we gain from other people's experiences in this way. If you will hear quite a lot from me, I'm sure. You've shown some interest in some topics, which I've sort of narrowed down to the ones that you, as a group, seem to be the most interested in. That's lecture materials, which is sort of a little bit one way, but the way it can become more two-way is for you to ask about things which you are particularly interested in. And if I haven't gone in enough depth about some aspects, then being able to go into more depth in the things that you are interested in. So not during the meditation, please, but certainly during the lecture part of the program. Do feel free to ask at any time. I won't set aside a special question time. We can have questions as we go along. Yeah, and that way it becomes more of a dialogue than a simple sort of one-way sage on the stage sort of experience. We get to share our inspiration, creative thoughts, common goals, learn from one another. That's another way in which the learning can happen. And to really benefit in this way to the maximum, and to make our learning something more active rather than just in a passive way, absorbing whatever passes by our ears and our meditations, then trying to be open, learn from others' experiences, admit maybe our shortcomings and try to build on those. This is all a sense of openness which you'll find useful during the meditation retreat. Some meditation traditions almost take a pride in the sense of secrecy or mystery surrounding their meditation, which is quite colorful and dramatic. But we tend to be more open and find that people benefit more from that. My experience of some meditation retreats is that you don't even ask your questions in front of the rest of the class, but you go off for a private sort of consultation with your meditation teacher, and how your meditation is maybe only known to yourself and to the teacher. In some ways that's good, because it avoids this temptation to maybe boast about your meditation experiences in front of all the other people. But on the other hand, you miss out on finding out what everyone else in your group is up to. And that is also a valuable part of the learning experience, if you are able to suspend your tendency to get jealous of those who maybe seem to be doing better than you. Yeah? No jealous people here? No, you feel really pleased if your neighbor's doing better than you in your meditation. Good for them, And yeah, it's part of being big-hearted. And meditation skills are emphasized more than religion on this particular retreat. If there are elements of Buddhist culture, then I think you'll find that they are all optional. So please don't let things which you find come into conflict with your own personal belief system be an obstacle to your enjoyment of the retreat. But there are opportunities there for you to learn more of the things that go on behind the scenes in the temple, for those of you who are interested to do that, and it would be welcomed for you to do that. So yes, you'll see other things sort of going on in the temple which are not part of our retreat, but which may be interesting to you too, in which case you'd be welcome to find out about that part of your experience. Yep. I think many of you have meditated before. I don't think any of you have never meditated before. Am I right? You're all sort of, at the very least, you're false beginners. That means you've done some meditation at some stage in the past. And what I'll do tomorrow is to try to give you a little bit more guidance about what maybe best for you personally as a way forward in meditation. But while we wait for those results to come back, the technique I'd like to talk to you about this evening is the most basic method, a good starting point for anyone in their meditation, which is known as the 7 bases of the mind. Sound familiar at all? Yeah. For those who haven't really thought about what you are doing in the meditation before, meditation is a way of working with the mind, not our brain or our nervous system, but our sense of awareness. And there is a sort of piece of wisdom that is put around that, generally speaking, we use only a very small percentage of the full potential of our mind. Yeah? Some people have put a number of like 2% or something on it. But okay, the idea is that we don't use our mind to its full potential. The way we understand the mind is our sense of awareness. And because our awareness tends to be scattered by things which distract us or steal away our interest, our attention, then a lot of the time our mind is spread quite thinly on many different things. And hence it doesn't tend to go in a very powerful way into the attention on any one of those things. If we're walking in a shopping mall, then our attention tends to be in the storefront windows. Yeah? Even though we may be walking along in a completely different place, but our attention is certainly out there on all these wonderful products on display. Sometimes even after we've gone home from the shopping mall, our mind is still in the storefront window. So, it's like we can be in one place and our mind can be totally in a different place. Some people may think, well, that's a great achievement because it allows you to multitask. You can be one place physically, but your mind is somewhere else doing lots of wonderful things. But in reality, what tends to happen is that when our mind is away from home, as it were, then a lot of other quite negative emotions can be absorbed by ourselves completely against our own will. So we tend to get a lot of negative things coming into our personal space because our mind is simply not there to defend our personal space. You can follow that. So the task of meditation is somehow to reel in our mind and get it to come back in the space of our body, to come back home, as it were. And this is not something that is easy to do because, for the most part, the mind is something which is invisible to us. It's not something you can touch. It's not a physical object. Yeah? You can't go to your doctor and get an X-ray of your mind. So if you want to learn to work with your mind, learn to control the mind, then generally you have to do it via some other intermediary, something by which you can get a handle on the mind in order to be able to control it better. The most commonly known intermediary is using the breath. And what you would do in a breath-based meditation would be to get your mind to focus on the breath as it's going in and out of your body. And for as long as your mind is on your breath, then even though the mind may still be moving with the breath, at least it's within the space of your body. So that is one way of getting your mind to come back home. Yeah? In this particular tradition of meditation, we tend to favor working with the intermediary of some sort of mental object. Yeah? And that object can sometimes be visual in nature. So if you favor a visual object, you might like to think of something like the sun shining in the sky. Can you think of that? Yeah? So like a picture, but it's not a picture you're seeing with your eyes, because there's not a sun to be seen there anymore, but it has all the same qualities of color and shape. But in fact, it's a picture in your mind's eye rather than in your actual physical eyes. And the interesting thing about such a picture is that it will only stay there for as long as your mind is concentrating on the picture. The moment your mind is distracted, the picture disappears. Also, the interesting thing about this picture is it tells you where your mind is located, because it will be where the picture is. And if you want to work with your mind to get your mind to go in a certain place, then all you have to do is move that mental picture to the place you want it to be. Yeah? Some people don't get along too well with a picture, and generally speaking, the majority of people get on better with a feeling rather than a picture. Simply because many people have this tendency to try much too hard to see that picture. And the harder they try, then the more tensed up they get in their meditation, which is actually what we were trying to get away from in the first place. So, an alternative, if you find you're trying too hard to see a picture, is to imagine that you feel an object, almost like a small fruit, resting in the palm of your hand, let's say. You imagine a small fruit like maybe a grape or a nectarine. Even if it's resting in the palm of your hand, then it will have a certain weight to it, certain texture, maybe a certain temperature, which you can feel. Even with your eyes closed, you would be able to feel that. It may be round, and in just the same way you can picture a sun shining, you could almost sense a feeling of an object which is there, that you can't, even though you can't see it. And the nice thing about working with a feeling is it's very hard to force the feeling. You can only be gentle with the feeling. So for the majority of people, working with a feeling is the way in which meditation is most easily achieved. Yeah? This meditation on 7 bases helps us to find how to bring this imagined object, whether it's something we see or something we feel, down to the center of our body. Yeah? This is where we're aiming for. Somewhere on the level of our diaphragm. Just 2 finger breadths above the navel. Yeah? That sort of distance above your navel. I believe it's known as a belly button here. Yeah? But you don't need to worry too much about the exact position. You go for the place that feels right. 7 bases. Well, it's made up of several things. Generally, we start by relaxing our body, relaxing all the muscles of our body first of all, making sure we're sitting comfortably, breathing more deeply. Having relaxed our body, we move on to relaxing our state of mind, which means basically emptying our mind of any worries or concerns that we may have. If our mind can be empty of all those sort of worries, then it makes a space in which we can perform our meditation a little bit more easily. And we have our imagined object. It can be a bright one if you like, or it can be one you can feel if you prefer that way of working with things. I'll lead the meditation as if you have the choice of that. Tomorrow we'll have a little bit more personalized guidance on that. The other problem which affects many people, it may affect you even outside the meditation itself, is a problem of excessive numbers of thoughts running through the mind. If you're the sort of person who finds problems sleeping, then this will certainly be the case for you, and it will probably carry over into your meditation as well. An excess of thoughts, not being able to turn off the thoughts at the end of the day in order to go to sleep, generally is a sign that you're going to meet up with the same sort of thing in your meditation. Taken to further extremes, it can lead to panic attacks, it can lead to palpitations, anxiety. Yeah, just when you've lost the ability to shut off the thoughts. If you find this is the case, then you may need to add a second element to your meditation, which is known as use of a mantra. Mantra? You may already even have a mantra, in which case, that's all well and good, you can use the one you already have. If you don't have one, then there's a ready-made one from our Dhammakaya tradition, which is the words Samma Arahang, which means a pure state of mind achieved in the proper way. And you hear the sound of those words as if they come up from the object you're imagining on the inside. Samarahang, samarahang. As for the position of the object we're going to imagine, we start by imagining it in front of our face, a place which we are fairly familiar with from all the other things that we concentrate on during our normal daily routine. So we start by imagining the object out there in front of our face and making it smaller in size, to the point where it's small enough to fit inside our nose. Yeah? So depending on the size of your nostril, you will need to make the objects smaller, okay? If you have a larger nostril, then maybe you don't need to make it quite as small. And the interesting thing about this one is that the relevant nostril is on the left side for ladies and on the right side for gentlemen. Okay? You can ask if you don't know reason for things. Yeah? Second point. So having brought the object to that point, made it smaller, we make it as realistic as we can. You hear the sound of the mantra 3 times, and then we move it to the next base, which is number 2, up at the bridge of our nose. Left side for ladies, right side for gentlemen. Stops there, you make it as realistic as we can, mantra 3 times. From there we move it backwards within our head until it reaches the central axis about the level of, on eye level, in the middle of our skull, number 3. This point and all the other points on the sequence are going to be the same now for ladies and gentlemen. So we bring the object there, we make it as realistic as we can, mantra 3 times. And then moving it further downwards now to the roof of our mouth, number 4. Stops there, make it as realistic as we can, mantra 3 times. Moving down again, this time to our throat, just above the Adam's apple. Yeah. We make it as realistic as we can, mantra 3 times. Then it moves down all the way inside the space of our body. As if inside our body is empty, bring it down to the level of our navel. Number 6. Make it as realistic as we can, mantra 3 times. Sometimes people think about 2 imaginary lines almost like crosshairs on the level of their navel in order to line things up. Exactly. And then upwards, 2 finger breadths, to the final point, which is the 7th base of the mind. And it's an interesting point because it's the precise center of the body in terms of our center of gravity. So although you might think, well, the brain would be a good place to put our object, but here's the place that's actually central. It's the place where balance is achieved. And if we can get a sense of balance between body and mind, well, a lot of interesting things can happen in the mind, such as the mind becoming free of thought. It's also like a center of wisdom in the mind. So the longer our mind is sort of connected at that place, then the more chance we have of accessing that sort of inner wisdom. Yep. So what I suggest is we have a little sample of the meditation, possibly for just 20 minutes this evening, to give you an idea. And after that, I will introduce you to what are known as 8 precepts, which are to do with the regime we're going to follow during the retreat, which I hope is not going to be too arduous for you. Meditation first, yeah? So if you like to make yourself comfortable, some of you are sitting on a chair, some of you are sitting on a meditation mat, either way you should sit with your back fairly straight. And the way to put your hands together is with your right hand on top of your left hand, the index finger of your right hand up against the thumb of your left hand, and your hands just rest in your lap. Yeah. The idea of this is if you ever get sleepy, then normally your thumb and finger will slip, giving you a little bit of warning before the rest of you slips. Hopefully you found your way down to the number 7. Didn't get lost along the way. Yeah. So if you can manage to meditate in this way, then generally all other methods will follow on from this. Even if you have a particularly bad day in your meditation, then usually by using this method you can still find your way back to your center, for those of you who may not have tried this before. Generally, it's not a method of meditation we would stay with for very long, but we would stay with it for as long as it takes to find our way with confidence to the center of our body. And having found our way to that point, then we can continue in a more simplified method of meditation where, having relaxed ourselves in body and mind, we would go directly to our center. Yeah. So this is just to let you know that if you find that you are already confidently at your center, then you can probably just take it from there instead of going through those first 6 points. Yeah. But tomorrow we will dwell on a simplified method of meditation, but by then hopefully I will have a little bit more guidance for you. It's a sort of generic meditation practice. I'll just finish off now by saying a little bit about the sort of what you can expect in terms of the sort of regime here. Did anyone mention anything about that? Did you know you're not getting a meal in the evening, for example? So that's probably the biggest shock if anyone didn't know about that. Do you know what 5 precepts are? And is that normally something that you would try to follow anyway? Well, for the meditation retreat, generally we recommend something slightly more than 5 precepts, which is not too different, but it does help you to have a little bit more focus for your mind, to help you to make further advances in your meditation by removing some things which are sometimes a distraction for you when you're training your mind. Some of them, the precepts, which are sort of rules of training, you recognize from the 5 precepts. They're probably not a great deal of a surprise to you. So not destroying the lives of living creatures, even small and annoying ones, to sort of cultivate this element of compassion. Yeah, if you have ants in your accommodation, then try to release them outside while they are still alive, rather than stamping on them. Yes, for example. Not stealing things, or if you are in some doubt about who actually owns something, then maybe try asking before you sort of take it. We try to distance ourselves from sexual sort of interest during the retreat. So even if you have come along with your spouse, you may find yourself in separate accommodation. The idea being that you have less distractions for probably reasons that are fairly obvious to you. Not telling lies or using unskillful sort of speech. Some retreats are completely silent. Ours tends not to be, although you might want to say less than you normally do. But one of the considerations of speaking less is that it's quite hard to say things that sort of continue to maintain the good energy which you have built up from your meditation. The sort of things that are worth saying, you probably will find are a lot less than you would normally say. So trying to keep the topic on things which are positive, maybe to do with helping people around you to meditate better, that are compassionate, helpful, and not just sort of entertaining. It would takes more of a sense of mindfulness to come up with that sort of thing. So generally unskillful thoughts of speech, like swearing and insulting people and idle chatter and slander and stuff, we tend to avoid, along with telling downright lies. Not taking intoxicants, so drinks, drugs, non-medicinal ones anyway, that lead to carelessness or loss of a sense of conscience. Smoking too. Those are all in 5 precepts, except for the third one, which is a little bit more intense than what you'd find in the 5 precepts. The extra ones, though, which you might be less familiar with, are to do with our eating, and not eating after generally noon time until the next morning. So when does the next morning start? Midnight? You're laughing as if you don't believe me. But when would it start then, the next morning? 4 a.m. Well, yeah. When you wake up. Well, it's basically dawn of the next day. And how do you know it's dawn of the next day? Well, the ready-made way of doing it is to look at the lines on the palm of your hand, and if you can see them by daylight already at arm's length, then generally it's considered to be dawn. So that's without the lights on. Here I'm not sure, but generally it's like 6 o'clock-ish. And what can you do then if you are hungry, weak, and you've got hypoglycemia and your hands are shaking and that sort of thing? Well, there are some things you'll be pleased to hear which are not considered to be food, which you can eat, because Buddhism is a very compassionate religion. So compassion generally comes in the shape of things like yogurt, dairy products of various sorts are for some reason not considered to be food, and things which have sugar in, even things like chocolate, as long as they don't have nuts or fruit in them, and fruit juice and that sort of thing. And I believe that your compassionate mentors will provide a selection of these for you at an appropriate time. There will probably be a table set up with those sorts of things on, which is just for you, okay? If you're going home, then if you are interested to sort of maintain this regime, then you might try to find an equivalent thing to help you to keep up the power of your mind, even though you are sleeping at home. You can still keep 8 precepts. The last one is to do with sleeping arrangements. The literal way of talking about it, forgot number 7. Yes, not to sing and dance and go and see entertainment, wearing garlands, using perfumes and beautifying the bodies with cosmetics, for the idea of not being a distraction to other people and also not distracting yourself with all those entertainments and stuff. You'll find the mind settles much more quickly in the absence of those. So if you're going home, then you might try to sort of make sure that you sort of steer clear of those sort of distractions too. And then it won't be such a, you won't be at a disadvantage compared with the people who stay over. And the last one to do with sleeping, not to sleep on a high or a luxurious sleeping place. I think here they have beds. They're not luxury beds, they're not big beds, they're not high beds, and they have quite a thin mattress. that would be considered appropriate. The idea is not to sort of oversleep and not to have the big four-poster bed or anything like that where you, just by sleeping in it, you feel lonely. It's sort of something where you can maintain the quality of your mindfulness even though you're lying down, basically. And you'll be raring to go at whatever time in the morning they're going to wake you up, which I think is about 5 o'clock. Yeah? I think they will wake you up as well with some sort of signal. Yeah. So, yes, even in your sleeping and resting, you are still maintaining your mindfulness. Generally, we take the 8 precepts by repeating them in the Pali language, which I do believe we will do now, if you are happy with that. Yeah. And at the end of the retreat, you don't need to keep doing them, okay? It's just for during the retreat. But if you really like them, you can keep them when you go home as well. Yes, and stock up on yogurt. Yeah.
Na mô tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. 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 พุทธังสารนังกัจฉามิธัมมังสารนังกัจฉามิสังฆังสารนังกัจฉามิทุติยัมปิพุทธังสารนังกัจฉามิทุติยัมปิธัมมังสารนังกัจฉามิทุติยัมปิสังฆังสารนังกัจฉามิตติยัมปิพุทธังสารนังกัจฉามิตติยัมปิธัมมังสารนังกัจฉามิตติยัมปิสังฆังสารนังกัจฉามิติสรณกัมมนังทิฏฐิทังปานาติปาตาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิปานาติปาตาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิอาทินาทานาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิอาทินาทานาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิอะปรมจริยาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิอะปรมจริยาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิมุสาวาทาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิมุสาวาทาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิสุราเมรยมัจจปมาทฐานาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิสุราเมรยมัจจปมาทฐานาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิ วิคาลโภชนาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิ
วิคาลโภชนาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิ
นัจจากิทาวาทิทาวิสุขดัสสนะมาลากันทาวิเลปนาดารณมันตนาวิภูตนาฐานาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิ
สิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิ
ชาเสนามหาเสนาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิ
อุจจาเสนามหาเสนาเวรมณีสิกขาปะทังสมาธิยามิ
มานิอัตถสิกขาปทานิสีเลนะสุปฏิญญันติสีเลนะโภคสัมปทาสีเลนะนิพุติญญันติทัสมาสีลังวิโสทักเย
Any questions you would like to ask before we wrap up for this evening? You're shy. Don't worry, it's all wear off, I'm sure. So I wish you sweet dreams.